ladies and gentlemen. What I want to start with first is some of the negatives. So this is from Harvard Business Publishing, and just some thoughts on what leads to poor leadership.
Most significant mistakes so many leaders have made in the last 20 years, and it's very upsetting, is that they put their self-interest ahead of the best interest of the institutions or the organizations they've run. And that, to me, is the greatest failing of a leader. If you're looking out for your own money, fame, power, glory, that's wrong. As Peter Drucker said, leadership is not about those things. It's about responsibility. And I think it's a deep responsibility you have to the people you work with, your customers, your employees, your shareholders, and all those constituencies you represent. And that's an obligation. And carrying that responsibility out is the essence of good leadership.
I think the biggest mistake that a leader can make is betraying trust. It's something that's very, very valued in the relationship between leaders and everybody else. And if you break that one, none of the rest of it's going to matter.
The biggest mistake a leader can make, I believe, is being certain. Things are constantly changing. Things are unpredictable. When we confuse the stability of our mindsets with the stability of the underlying phenomenon, we act as if we know. When you think you know, you don't pay any attention any longer. Why bother since you know? Again, since things are always changing, uncertainty should be the rule, and what you want is a leader to learn how to exploit the power in uncertainty.
Gosh, I think probably to not to live up to their values. Leaders who espouse values but don't deliver them are very rapidly found out and very rapidly turned over. So I think that's probably the biggest crime a leader can commit. And I think, of course, this is one aspect of the reason why I think there's so much leader churn today.
I think to be so overly enamored with their vision that they lose all, all capacity for self-doubt. You oftentimes see, and I think it's the flip side of good leadership, of inspiring leadership, of passionate leadership, is that sometimes you can get caught up in becoming absolutely, completely, single-mindedly focused on the pursuit of a purpose, and that moves from being, from being a passion and a purpose to becoming an obsession. And at that point, perhaps when you're the most inspiring, because that becomes your whole life, your whole world, and that's what you're trying to do and pursue and get others to do. You can also be the most vulnerable because, in fact, you might lose the capacity to, look at, what are the consequences of what you're trying to do. What other ways might there be? What are the voices that you might be disenfranchising in that, passionate and relentless pursuit?
From my experience, I would say arrogance, personal arrogance and hubris, and confusing the size of the enterprise or the success of the enterprise with the individual's persona. I think that creates greater social distance and power distance, and can also, which is demotivating for most organizations and people. And secondly, it, I think, increases the chances of making big mistakes.
I think the biggest mistake a leader can make is potentially acting too fast and executing before actually thinking through the issue. In corporate America, and even in government, often you find it drinking from a fire hose of issues that are coming at you. And there's very little time to actually step back, evaluate, and think about what you're doing, and then enter the stage with a new clear vision of where you're going. Most of the time, it's very much a harness the flow of issues and address those. So realistically, my opinion is the best thing a leader can do is take a step back from the situation with their management team, seek advice, think through it, even if it's a 5-minute process, and then move back to execution. This stepping back is both good in the short term in solving issues, but also in long-term management and thinking through strategy for a firm.
There are two big mistakes that leaders can make. My understanding of the research and my experience with leaders is we're very, as followers, and I think we're very Catholic with a small c. We'll accept almost any leadership style. Little leaders, meek leaders, tall, big, loud, short, tall. We're very eclectic, we're very forgiving of leadership, a whole range of leadership styles. As long as two things are true. One, and we're great at sniffing the first one out. As soon as we get a first little sniff that it's all about the leader instead of something else, in the service of something bigger. If my efforts are all about her or all about him, that's the first thing. So that's the first big mistake. It has to be about something larger than yourself. The second major mistake that I see is this, whether it's called authentic or not being authentic, it's trying to be something else, being inconsistent. The word integrity means whole, it means consistency. Again, the greatest fear we see from people in the workplace is, which one's coming in today? Is this person going to be the one who comes in?
Ever work for somebody like that?
Oh, how are you doing today? Or the one who's talking behind my back and stabbing me in the back and being the Jekyll and Hyde. So the two biggest mistakes are not being authentic and consistent and predictable, and being all about you and not something bigger than yourself.
I think the biggest mistake a leader can make, or maybe the worst trait a leader can have, is to not be self-reflective. So the admired leaders that I've worked with and the people just in my own day-to-day that I've apprenticed myself to and really wanted to follow have been people who are constantly reviewing their own behavior, who are thinking about how they can develop themselves and thinking about how their behavior impacts other people. So I think unless somebody is willing to hold up a mirror to themselves and have an honest-to-God conversation about how they're doing, what effect their leadership is having, and what effect they have on other people, I don't think they'll be effective as leaders. And I think conversely, the people who are the worst leaders are people who just bulldoze forward and plow forward through life, making mistakes, not really looking back on the past, not learning as they go, and not necessarily being self-aware about how they're affecting the people around them.
Some opinions from some professors at Harvard. They deal with a lot of folks in business on a regular basis, you can imagine. And some of their thoughts about, say again?
What did that guy say that you disagreed with?
I disagree with his statement about acting too quickly, because what you will find in most real-world situations, if you don't act quickly, you're in a world of trouble. Not that you should not be reflective, not that you should not think things through, because if you have the time to do that, you can. But in leadership, and I mean leadership from being mom or being dad, to being aunt, to being uncle, to being manager, to being COO, whatever it might be, things get presented to you very quickly. The preparation comes before the thing is presented to you, usually. That's where the preparation has to come. You have to be prepared for that to happen. And so leaders must act very quickly. If you stop and you pause and you think about it for too long and you dwell on it forever, you've missed what needs to happen. So I think you have to be careful about a statement like that and put it in a better context than the short little blurb that we have there. So I think he was right at the end when he said, if you don't sit down and consult with the influencers in your life that you allow to influence your life, then you will also miss things, and that I firmly agree with. So, fair question, thank you. So, we're going to talk about leadership today, and I want to utilize as a guide the 7 laws of leadership from a fellow that did a lot of speaking in the 60s and 70s. His name was Charlie Tremendous Jones, and his big shtick was the tremendous life. And Charlie was absolutely a motivational speaker in a world where motivational speakers were beginning to elevate very rapidly. But he had some unique groundings and some absolute truths that I like, and so that's why I've always used him as a source, as opposed to a lot of the modern motivational teaching, which centers more of what I would call survivor show motivation. Where it's about you, and it's about what you can accomplish, about what you can achieve, and it forsakes others. And Charlie doesn't do that, so that's why I'm using the 7 laws of leadership. And I've also taken a number of liberties on my own with this in our short period of time together to use it as the guide. It is not exhaustive. There are a billion things that we could talk about, and we could speak about leadership and guiding, and teaching, and training for the next 4 weeks if we wanted to. So these are some elements that I think are elements that can lead us into thought about our leadership and where we're leading, but they, again, are not exhaustive. So first thing I want to do is define our terms. And while you have a break in between the potato chips, why don't you guys offer me a definition of what you think leadership is? What is leadership?
Punctuality.
Punctuality.
Influence.
Influence.
Teaching others the same things that you learned.
Replicating. Excellent.
Somebody who doesn't hesitate to guide their team in the right direction. It's definitely good leadership.
Okay.
Unbiased.
Unbiased.
Honesty.
Honesty. Such a lonely word, and everyone is so untrue. Hopefully you all. Anything else?
Integrity.
Integrity. At the same time, like that. Very good. So good definitions. You guys really are defining some characteristics of leadership within that. What about law? How do you think we should define the term law in a discussion about the laws of leadership? A rule. An absolute. I heard absolute. Anything else? Unwaverable. Go with those. Let me give you some basic definitions from the good old dictionary, just so we make sure we take that and let's align that with your characteristics you played out. It's the action of leading a group of people or an organization. So when we talk about a group of people today, I want to ensure that we define that in a variety of different ways. A group of people doesn't mean I'm just talking today about what we do around here, even though that's important to me and I hope it's important to you. I'm talking about all the groups of people that are in our lives. If you're a parent, you have an organization, you have an institution, that is the family that you are leading. If you're a grandparent, you continue that legacy of leadership of a family, of a unit. If you have friends in your life that you participate with on a regular basis, that is a group that you can influence in your life. If you go to church somewhere, that is a place where you can lead and have influence. If you participate in community groups, if you could participate in community service, these are areas where you can lead and have influence. So as we talk about leadership, the qualities you mentioned, and in this section here, let's remember that I'm talking about all these things. I'm not trying to drive some particular agenda just here at the office, all right? And the other is laws, and you guys talked about them being absolutes. And I would say that's probably right along the lines. It's more of an if-then statement. If this happens, then this will be. So we can use examples like Newton's law of gravity. If you have two masses, they have a force put upon them, depending on the square separation and the size will depend on the gravity. If you have Newton's law of motion, one of those is an object in motion will stay in motion until a force acts upon it. So those are things that we can replicate again and again and see that they are laws. And in the way that we interact with people, in the way that we lead our lives, there are certainly laws that exist there as well, by the action that we take and what we will get. So we can apply that to leadership as well. And I would not call them firm absolutes always, because it does vary what results you're going to get at times. But in most cases, you can replicate what we're talking about today by the actions that you have. So apart from that, I want to define our purpose. Why are we sitting here at lunch today, by the way? Thanks for taking your lunch hour to be here today. And I would define it under 3 different realities. And reality number 1 is this. People in your life are in need of your leadership. There is a lack of leadership in the world. There's a lot of talking heads, but there's not a lot of doers and real leaders. So people are in need of that in your life. And that includes your family, your friends, your coworkers, your managers, owners, shareholders, government, community. So in all those areas, people are hoping and looking to you to lead. The second reality and purpose here is people in your life are expectant of your leadership. It's not that they just need it. They are wanting you to do it. They're wanting you to step out. They're wanting you to take the charge. I would say that is so true for me, with all of you that I work with. I need your leadership because your leadership and your taking steps of actions are an encouragement to me. So if you look at a corporation from this top-down drill down, this person leads and these don't, I want you to know that that philosophy does not exist here. It is not a part of this company's philosophy. We want leadership from all layers. Now, obviously, we have to make hard decisions here, but hard decisions have to be made here. And the way these hard decisions made here amazingly influence what happens here. So please keep that in mind as we talk. And reality number 3, those of us that work with us are, I'm sorry, did I already read it? But that is exactly the essence of what I mean. Those of us that work with you are desiring your leadership. We are desperate for it. We not only need it, we are expectant of it. And I think that you'll find this true of many people in your life. So let's talk about Charlie's 7 laws. And again, they're not exhaustive laws, but I think they are practical, and I think they are something that you can implement. I think it's something that you can ponder over the next few days. So here's number 1. Learn to get excited about your work now. Many of us are always thinking down the line about what we want to do and what we would like to do or what we could wish we could do. But life and reality has us where we are right now today. For some reason, in space and time, you are sitting in a particular office and you are working on a particular function or multiple functions. That is the place that you are. That is the starting point from today until it's all over. It's not, my starting point will be when I get to, or my starting point will be when I achieve blank. This is the place where you start looking at how you lead. Whether that be in the sales department, whether that be in our claims department, whether that be, I don't know why I'm drawing blanks, customer service. I'm just looking around the room trying to grab things. So it doesn't matter where you are right now, that's where leadership begins. The problem with not following this law and stepping into the world of leadership is that people sit in a particular role or particular function within an organization and assume that they'll start something whenever they get to there. But if you're not starting something here, you never get to there anyway. You're just not getting down the path if you don't take the attitude of being a leader in the role that you are now. And again, we are desperate for leaderships in the places where people are now. So when we talk about just our bodily injury department, we have things that we try and impart into that department from a manager who's had maybe more experience. But the person that is involved and wrapped up in managing that BI file every day is the person who has the opportunity to lead on that file and make something happen on that file and influence what's happening on that file. And by taking an attitude of leadership and control in the place that you are now, that is setting a stage for the future. It is setting a stage for other things that you wish to engage in and you wish to accomplish, but it is focusing on the place you are now. And I got a lot of buddies that are absolutely miserable in the places they are now. I always say, congratulations, man. Well, congratulations. I mean, it's awful. I have to go and I have to do this every day, and and it's repetitive. And I'm like, man, what a chance, what an opportunity. Because if you can lead in your misery, imagine what you're going to be able to accomplish is going to make you feel better about what you're doing, and then what that's going to lead to later on. Because if everything's all hunky-dory now, what kind of steps of leadership or action are you going to take anyway? It's an opportunity. It's an absolute opportunity. So leading from where you are now, and taking with this and leading from where you are now about what you're really trying to drive for in life or how you're envisioning life. And most people are just like, I'm just looking for what makes me happy. And I would tell you that in leadership, applying that rule will break everything going forward. If you take an attitude of doing what ought to be done, what's right, that's setting the element of leadership in the place that you are now that sets the future. And when you focus on what ought to be done and what's right in leading from the place you are now, you'd be surprised how that brings happiness in the if-then. If you do this, then that will come along. So leadership rule number one is to lead from the place you are now. You are not in a place where you cannot lead. You are in a place where you can lead. If you are a parent, you're currently in a place where you can lead. You can lead your children. You can teach them the things that you think are most important in life. You can show them the things that you think are most interesting in life. You can set the foundations of a worldview for them that you think is a right worldview. And the place that you are now and the function that you're doing today within this organization, you can lead from that spot. Because trust me, none of the management here, leadership in this organization has all the answers. Just don't. If I ever tell you I got it all figured out, you can just punch me in the face. There is so much yet to be learned, so much yet to be understood with every functionality we have, and things change so rapidly. Technology is moving so rapidly. And if you're touching that function every day and you go, there is a way to make this work better. There is a way to have a greater understanding of where I am in the sales process, where I am in this file, if this just existed. And then you go and you say, listen, I got this idea, and it may be crazy, but I think that if we had this particular entry or this particular step within here, that not only would we save a lot of time, but we would gain a greater understanding of where we sit, or we would have the opportunity to make an additional sale, or we'd be able to communicate better in-house of exactly what's going on with this file. Now, that's leadership. And it will be recognized and it will be seen for exactly what it is. Within these walls, I guarantee you. Now, I don't know about other companies. That just may be stolen, it may be taken to somebody else's idea, and you might be in trouble. But it's still worth doing because what? Because it's the right thing to do. And that's number one. Number two, use it or lose it. Use it or lose it. And this is true about a lot of things when you want to step into the area of being a leader. If you do not use a talent, you will lose it. And it goes on simple things in life. I had a talent for playing the piano by ear. And my mother stuck me in classes for piano. And I started to progress with that. But it bored me to death. Because they made me play what they wanted me to play, and I couldn't play what I wanted to play. And so, I couldn't play Hank Williams Jr. on the piano. I had to play some 1950s pop. And it just bored me to death. And I wasn't willing to stick through it. And the talent that was given to me never got developed. And now when I sit down at the piano, I'm just nothing but depressed. Because if I had stuck with working through the technical side of that, the talent could have been developed. But because I didn't use it the way that it should be used, and I didn't engage in what I should engage in, it's gone. That's not only true of talent, because each of you have unique talents. You have unique skill sets that are built into your person, and it's figuring out how you train those and how you add more knowledge to those. But if you decide not to use those things, they get stale, and it's harder to go back and work from those. You got to use it, and you got to use it or lose it. It's true with opportunity. Let's just talk about jobs specifically. You're given a particular opportunity of a job within an organization, and instead of giving it 100%, instead of trying to build your skill set within that job that you have, instead of continuing to read and add knowledge to what you're doing, instead of digging through and thinking through the processes of what you're doing, instead of just doing the process over and over again, you can lose that opportunity. Because there might be someone else who comes along that could do that job, who's willing to engage more into that job, willing to to add knowledge to what they're doing in that job, willing to share with others what they know about it, and that person takes the opportunity and you lose it. And then you file off onto something else that you go and try and see if that's the next best thing that's going to do for you. Or you go and you try this and see if that's the next best thing that's going to do for you. And that's a way of losing something. And when people don't use what they have, if they don't use the talent they have, if they don't use the opportunity that's presented to them, an opportunity presents itself in a variety of ways. Too many to list in the short period of time that we have. If you don't use the job that you have the opportunity to be at, it only leads to one thing. You want to blame somebody because you didn't take the steps to use what you had. And that's the true failure in life. When you blame somebody, you've really failed. That's failure. Not making a mistake. You know, not tripping and falling on the banana peel. But when you get to blaming someone, it really ultimately, if you find yourself blaming someone, ask yourself, in this whole situation, what did I have available to me that I didn't use so that I could step up into bettering the opportunity or step up into the area of leadership? So use it or lose it. Number 3, production or perfection. And this is a debate that I think that if we brought in a whole group of people, or even if we all started talking about it, we might disagree with this particular law that Charlie puts forward. Production versus perfection. I'll give you an example, again, only because it's easy for me to give examples from my life because I've lived it. You'll have to find examples in your own life. But there are 2 different personalities between me and Darren Kirby. Darren Kirby is a perfectionist. And you need perfectionists in your life if you're not one, by the way. Because the example that I give people is I'm standing on the other side of the hill and I'm with the army. And I'm one of the soldiers that pulls my sword out, you know, like a scene out of Braveheart or something, yells really loud, waves my sword in the air, and goes running over the hill. Only to discover I'm the only one running over the hill, and there's 10,000 people with bows and arrows on the other side. You know, and then I'm running back with my shield behind me, trying to cover my rear as I get back to the group. Because a guy like Darren is the soldier that's going, now wait a minute. We should consider how the land is laid out here, and if we go over and flank this side and come down and we have a higher position over the hill, then we have a better position with these guys who've got the bows and arrows, and we'll be able to charge, and we'll only lose Don and about 5,000 others, but the rest of us are going to win. But the problem with perfection is, number one, the level of perfection is always moving. So this works perfectly, but then as it gets to perfect, it's not perfect enough for the market. It's like the product is not good enough for the market any longer, or the system is now antiquated because other systems have passed it. But production gets you going down a path. And what I equate is to the production versus perfection problem is taking a Socratic look at that and saying excellence is really the thing to try and go for. Excellence in what you are doing, or excellence in what you are producing. So instead of sitting around and thinking about, okay, we'll do this whenever all of these stars align, or whenever we get all these particular things figured out, or when there's absolutely no bugs left in this deal whatsoever, then we'll put it out, is another day that it's not out, and another day that you're not learning in a real-world environment, and another day that you are not producing. So you have to be careful in this. This is really something you have to weigh and measure with all things in life. You know, with right now with kids going to college, you know, and waiting for that perfect opportunity or that one university that you're really, you know, waiting to hear from and hoping to hear from, but having these opportunities already present themselves and going, well, I know I could go do that now, and if this presents itself later, maybe in 2 years, I can then go there and do that, instead of just waiting for something to land on the doorstep. That is the perfect scenario, the perfect dream, the perfect plan. And so with leadership, if you are a doer, people will recognize you as a doer. They will go, that person can get things done. And in the midst of getting things done, they're shooting for excellence, and they try and solve problems as they arise. Because true perfection, I don't know that it exists in this life, because number one, we all have different ideas of what perfection is. And number two, there's always problems, which is why I've always been happy to be a manager, because I tell people, well, our company, nothing always works perfectly, and we have all these problems, and that's what I work on. So if we didn't have problems, I got no job. So in doing, problems do present themselves, but if you're waiting for something to be perfect, if you're waiting for the perfect time, if you're waiting for, think about when you wanted to have kids. I mean, did you ever say to yourself, well, because we did, Danae and I did, we'll have kids when we've accomplished this and this and this and this. And then things will be perfect for having kids. Well, there just was no, getting to those things, you don't know the timeline it's going to happen on. And then we had kids, and we were just happy to have them, and we started working those other things out along the way, even though we had the kids in our life. And our life would have produced less, and we could have experienced less if we had waited to have kids until all this was in place. Which is happening more these days. You know, most people are waiting till they're much older to have kids. You know, waiting usually for this perfect moment. Because, you know, I went to school, and I got my degree, and I'm going to get this job, and then I'll grow within the organization, and then that will lead to this, and then by the time we accomplish that, you know, we'll feel better about having kids.
And then they feel too old to take care of them.
I'm not throwing stones, by the way, because there's plenty more to be thrown back at me, but I have a friend of mine, and he is 50 and just had a kid.
Wow.
You know,
Oh, Lord.
yeah. And mine's getting ready to leave for college. I'm like, man, I'm getting ready to get these kids out of my house and have the kid phone with grandkids. They're like, oh, I'm done with this child. It was fun, but now you can take it home. I'm not saying that's not good, because kids are good no matter when or how they arrive. But in considering production versus perfection, do consider this law. Get busy doing the thing that you think you should be concentrating on. And by doing that, you step into a role of leadership that the perfectionist might miss. Okay? And that's, Darren not only is a perfectionist, he is a doer. So in using that example, I'm not trying to totally equate this on. Leaders give. Period. Leaders give. They give of themselves. They give of their resources. They give of their life.
Selfless.
Absolutely selfless. Not that we all don't have some selfishness and some ego to deal with, because we all have to figure out how we put that in line, but yes, selfless. Giving is I think, one of these major laws in leadership. Leaders don't give so that they can get. And that exists a lot in our culture today. It not only exists in the culture of why I do what I do. If I give this, then I get that. It also exists within our religious circles these days, and is an elevated a part of this law. Because if you do give, you will find generally in life that you do get. But that cannot and should not be the driver for a person who wants to lead others. You do not do for your children so that they will do for you. You do for your children because you love them, you want to see them grow, you want to see them become good people, you want to see them become contributors. You know, if you're giving so that you can get love back from them, or you think that if I do this for my children, then they will do this for me, it's all the wrong reasons. And my joke with my kids is, you know, oh, I'm doing this for you now, so when I'm old, you'll wipe my fanny for me. They're not going to do it. They're going to hire someone to do it, who's going to be at their miserable job and have to decide to leave from where they are now. The great thing about giving is you never run out of what you can give. If you are on your deathbed, you can still give hope to the people that are around you. If you are incapacitated, you can still give hope to the people that are around you. So it's Darren doing his Darren thing. So leaders can always give from wherever they are. And giving requires really stepping into the area of considering true humility, which, again, is something you really have to weigh and measure within yourself, the true humility, because a lot of people put on an air of humility, but it just doesn't represent in the things that they do. So, you know, in looking at giving, you have to ask yourself, you know, how do I humbly step into this role of guiding? How do I humbly step into this role of what I'm doing and not do it for these other reasons? So giving is really key. Exposure versus, exposure to experience, actually, not exposure versus, exposure to experience. If you want to get in the realm of being an experienced leader, then you have to expose yourself. And I don't mean by flashing people in the office or anywhere else. You have to expose yourself to things you don't know and things you don't understand and things you have not been taught and trained on. I listened to a interview with Malcolm Gladwell the other day, and he's a very interesting character. He's a very bright, he's really a genius in many ways. And he said, I really screwed up going to college. He said, when I went to college, I took courses in things that I knew something about. The things I knew I was good at, I took courses on. He said, what I should have done when I went to college is take courses on things I understood absolutely nothing about. He goes, so when it came to writing, when it came to literature, he goes, I was excellent in those things and I took those courses. He goes, what I should have done is put myself into the statistics class. Because still today, when it comes to math, I'm all screwed up. And so, when you look at exposing yourself, you have to allow yourself to step into areas where you're not comfortable. When you do that, people follow you into those areas as well. And you'll have the opportunity to lead more because you've allowed yourself to be exposed to something difficult. You've trained yourself up in it. You've built a knowledge base for it that will allow you to guide and help others in the areas that are weaker for you. We all have particular areas that are very weak for us. And in the Malcolm Gladwell way, I started my statistics class in college, and I got into the first 2 weeks of it, and I got out of it. And I decided I was going to go be Tom Brokaw. Went over to the communication side. And now I have to deal with spreadsheets all day long. And, you know, half of my day is math. And I wish I'd have gone and suffered the statistics class. It means exposure in a lot of different ways. It means taking a stand sometimes on things that ought to be done, right? What is right, what ought to be done. And so you have to expose yourself and say, listen, this is not acceptable. This is what ought to be done. And that's exposure, because you might lose something. But leaders do that. They expose themselves, and then they build this long list of experience. And experience really allows you to lead and guide others, because you're able to apply and go, listen, I've been there. Let me share with you some thoughts about what might help you in this particular situation. So exposure to experience is a vital law that we have. Number 6 is flexible planning. You should be a planner. But if your plan is firm, you're in trouble. Because so many elements are going to be thrown into your plan. One of the things that one of the ladies said that she thought led to bad leadership was acting as if you were absolutely certain. Leaders of organizations today cannot be absolutely certain. When I sit in front of reinsurers, here's what a reinsurer says. All of them. Don, what's going to happen next year? And this is what I do. Act like I'm leaning behind. Go, hold on. All right, let's look into my crystal ball, because it tells me everything. And they laugh. I go, listen guys, I'm going to tell you what we are going to work on. I'm going to tell you what we see as our issues right now. I'm going to tell you the steps that we're taking with those issues right now. And I'm going to tell you what we believe, our belief about these actions, what we believe that will lead to with what's going on with the product, with claims, customer service, with underwriting, with marketing, with sales over this next year. So I'm going to tell you what we're going to be doing. But what will happen as you and I know, the reason we're in the world of insurance is that we don't know what's going to happen, and so we buy insurance. So when I look back at historic treaty years, and you guys want to talk about 2009, I can tell you that for the first time in numerous years, El Paso got slammed with a hailstorm that was unbelievable. And it was $1 million loss. And no one saw that coming in El Paso on September 16th of 2009. It hadn't happened there like that in a long, long time. When you look at predictive modeling, and these guys bring all this modeling all the time. They want to know what modeling you've done. They want this 100-year modeling. They want this 50-year modeling. But no one does 10 and 20 and 30-year modeling. You know why they don't? Because there's no way to know. You can't know what's going to be thrown at you. You can build in your rate an expectation of major loss, but the size of that loss is a guess. It's a pick. There's just no way to know. And so as you're doing your planning, as you're developing, as you're putting things together, your planning has to be flexible. Because even if I sit and present something to the reinsurers for the next year, what happens in the first month of a treaty year may have to change my plan. So the plan might be, well, what we're going to focus in on the first month of this treaty year is this new integration modeling that we have for loss cost analysis. And that's where our focus is going to be. No, you have a major hail loss on April 2nd, the second day of the treaty year. Guess what we're going to be spending our time on? Ensuring we're processing through our MD claims at a rapid pace to get that closed out. That's where everyone's attention is going to be. So your planning has to be flexible with what you're doing. It's the sixth rule of leadership. But the other thing with flexible planning that I think is important is thinking about what your commitments are. So if you're in a marriage, you can't say, well, I'm going to go into this marriage and sample it and see how it works. Because if you're going into marriage with that attitude, you shouldn't be going into marriage, right? Because it's a long-term commitment. What is missing today in people's planning about their careers is committing themselves to organizations. So if you've decided to attend a particular church and you're going to sample it for a year, you're going to miss out on how you can lead in it. Because your mindset is, I'm going to see how this works out for me. Instead of, I'm going to see what I can help do here, and I'm going to see how I can be a leader here. I'm committed to this group of people. The same thing is true if you're doing community service. Well, I'm going to go sample and see what it's like to work with the homeless on Saturdays and see if I like it. Well, commit to it. What's not good about helping the homeless on Saturdays? It's good. Commit to that and say, that is what I'm committed to. Just the same way that you commit to a marriage. That is how you're going to get the opportunity to lead, because you passionately engage yourself in the thing that you've chosen to go and do. And the same thing's true about organizations. And everyone wants to know why they sometimes get at this point in their career where things just kind of go south for them. Because they flip from organization to organization to organization to organization. They haven't built up their opportunity to lead in that organization because they flip-flopped all over the place. And it takes a long time to get to know someone. And it takes a long time to understand their habits. It takes a long time to understand their talents. And it takes a long time to understand how they can be a contributor over the long term. And people go, and I look at young people's resumes today, and it's 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, 6 months, 9 months. I throw that resume right in the trash. They're not committed to anything. So you commit yourself to an organization. You say, I'm not going to sample this thing. I've decided that I want to take this job that they're offering me, and I'm going to commit myself to this organization. And I'm going to be passionate about what I'm doing, and if they will give me the opportunity, I'm going to see how they'll let me lead in other places as I go along. But I believe in it. I like what they do. I like what they stand for. I'm in. I'm in through the tough times. I'm in through the good times. I'm in when this job is hard. I'm in when this job is easy, and I get to go spend time on other things. But I'm fully in. I'm engaged. I'm going to marry myself to it. And that's missing today in our corporate cultures. It's really not there, and that's why people don't get opportunities in leadership, because they're just bouncing all over the place, hoping something's going to be easy or the fruit's going to fall off very quickly. So I'll move for the $500, I'll move for the $1,000, I'll move for the $2,000, when if they commit to the organization, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because people who own companies and shareholders that have a board of directors who are watching what's happening in their companies are looking for people that are passionately committed to help lead in the future of that organization. And they can look down and go, that person has committed to us. We can have faith in that individual and letting them lead here. And that's where a lot of it gets missed today, with leading within business. And of course, you can say the same thing about family. You know, if you're not committed to your parents now and staying focused and committed on serving your parents as they get older, then when they get in tough situations, you're not necessarily engaged, and it's a missed opportunity to lead and to guide and to help. True in life, true in business, true for leadership overall. Flexible planning. Everything's going to change. I don't know that we use that necessarily when we hire folks anymore, but we used to use it all the time. The one thing we can tell you about what's happening here is it's going to change. And how great that is, because 40 years ago, there were 3 employees in a farmer's agency. And then in 1980, it jumped to Darren's texting me while I'm trying to do this. He says, I'm hungry. What it then turns into is going into an independent agency and hiring some more folks. And they were tough times in 80 of learning, trying to deal with new companies, expanding the knowledge base of the organization. And that grew to be in the top 1% of independent agencies in the US. And then it was, you know, we've been doing this and working with all these companies all these years, and we just think there's a better way. And then stepping into the MGA world. And then being in the MGA world for 10 years and going, if I was a carrier, we would do this and we would do this. And now stepping into the carrier world. And those of you, there's some of you that have been with this organization for a long time, have been able to be a part of that growth and able to move along with that growth. I came in here and I sat in that cube in the far back and I did ads. And that was what I was hired to do at the time. And I enjoyed doing that and I was happy to do that. But then I started sticking my nose in other places too. I was committed to the organization and wanted to be a part of watching and being a part of the organization grow. Now he's just being a real jerk. That didn't pop up on the screen, did it?
But oh, we would have laughed.
Last, because we're almost out of time.
We should have said yes.
That's right. If you motivate others and don't motivate yourself, you will miss out on life while helping others. So you got to take the idea of being motivated to turn it to motivating. You've got to motivate yourself. You got to talk to yourself. You got to ask yourself hard questions. You got to analyze what, again, people talk about as a major mistake of leaders, is they don't self-reflect. As you're going through the process of being a leader, you're going through the process of making decisions, you're going through the process of teaching and training, you're going through the process of doing, and you're not self-reflecting as you're going through it, you really miss out. As Socrates says, the life, the unanalyzed life is not a life worth living. You have to motivate yourself. You have to keep driving yourself with the steps that you're taking. Go, I'm going in today, I'm committed passionately to this. I'm going home tonight, passionately committed to my marriage. I'm going home tonight, I'm passionately committed to my kids. I'm going to church on Wednesday or Sunday night, I'm passionately committed to what I'm doing. You're motivating yourself. And by doing that, you will be leading and motivating others, because they'll be looking at your lead by example. They'll be looking at your commitment. They'll be looking at you and the way that you self-analyze. They'll be looking at you because you'll find that you made mistakes and you'll have to go and confess that to somebody and go, you're going to have to forgive me, I was wrong there. People will be watching all of that, and that self-motivation is what's going to lead to those actions and that activity as a leader. It's a real important one. So, your leadership is needed. I am desperate for your leadership here because it motivates me. When people bring ideas to the table with our systems, with our processes, or there's results that we have with clients, or we hear great stories of how a customer is thrilled to death, or how our claimant has had the item taken care of in a way that pleases them, that motivates me. It motivates me to go do the things I've got to do. So you're needed with your leadership. And I promise you, with your friends that are in your life, they're looking for someone in your group, your clique, to really lead the group, to keep the group together, to keep the group steered in a right direction. They're looking for that. And I think also importantly is one of the statements that Charlie says, Darren, you're just being a jerk now. Quit it. I think it's important to realize that you're trying to build a life, not an empire. You're not trying to build something that you're going to be able to have your big hands on and go, look what I ruled over. You're trying to build a life for your family, a life for you and your coworkers, a life for the people and the community that you live in. So don't build something up so you can stand on top of it and go, look what I can do. Build a life. And if you lead from where you are right now and you apply many of these things, you will find that you're stepping into the leadership role you want. Yes, it is. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. You've helped me with my timing. If you have some more resources you want, just let me know. I'll tell you about some books that I think are great books to read.
Don?
Sir?
Outliers?
Yes. Yeah, it is phenomenal, isn't it?
Yes.
Good job. What's that? What?
What are you doing? The last thing I need is you having pictures of me.
I know.
I saw what you did with the last one.
Should I be
You're
nervous?
still getting copyright infringements from Futurama.
That is fantastic.
That is awful. I'm so waiting on Futurama to call you with a lawsuit.
I don't know if you know her.
Thank you for sharing that.
College friend of mine, he worked back there doing the website for the company. Always
I know the name. I'm trying to picture his face.
Your mouth is a revolver, find bullets in the sky.
Little bitty guy. Yeah, he's okay. He's not. More man.
Your love is like a soldier, loyal till you die. And I've been looking at the stars for a long, long time. I've been putting out fires all my life. Everybody wants to flame, they don't want to get burned. And today is our time. Days like these lead to nights like this, lead to love like ours. You like the spark in my bonfire. People like us, we don't need that much. Just someone that starts the spark in our bonfire.
Act fast. Act fast. Don't drag your feet on
this world is getting colder.
I'm that kind of guy. Thank you.
No one offers you a shoulder, no one looks you in the eye.